I am Virginia Thompson. My husband was only 23 when he went to war. I had just had our first baby. He never came home.
MIA hunters, father and son, Brian and Christopher Moon, after a 2-year search, have discovered Minnesota World War II pilot Lieutenant Theodore Thompson, who has been missing in action for nearly 6 decades. The 23-year-old pilot from Moorhead, Minnesota, was flying an A-36 dive bomber on July 10, 1943. His plane crashed into a hillside somewhere in southern Sicily. His body was never recovered. 6 decades later, at the request of the Thompson family, the MIA hunters were contacted as the final hope to try to locate his missing body. The search took 2 missions to Sicily, involving interviews with hundreds of elderly local townspeople. Expedition members Sicily and Donna Moon accompanied the first mission and were directly responsible for broadening the search criteria to include local cemeteries, a decision that would later prove critical. The turning point came after return to the U.S. when it was found that Thompson's wingman had survived the war, which led to the finding of the Air Force post-mission report. This report finally narrowed the search to just a 20-mile stretch of road between the towns of Kanakati and Riesi, only 15 miles south of the original search zone. Upon arrival in the area, the arduous process of finding and interviewing every elderly person began.
So, I asked these 2 old people about the plane which crashed in 1943 in summer, 10th July. And they told me that there were 2 planes crashing near this area. One, the first we are visiting now, was German, not American. The American plane, they say, crashed in the way to Somatino, 2 kilometers from here, on the right.
He says there was one pilot, that the plane came down, and everybody knows it and seeing it. There's 2 old men seeing it, the plane came down. They're going to take you to the spot where the plane came down.
Working with their interpreter, the Moons located an old man who had witnessed Thompson's plane crash and subsequently led the team to the crash site.
Gadang, I got pum. Like that.
It's taken us 2 years to arrive at this spot, the spot where Lieutenant Theodore Thompson, flying an A-36 dive bomber on July the 10th, 1943, apparently crashed in this spot. And all the eyewitnesses we have spoken to know it was an American airplane, know it was diving, know it struck the hill, know it exploded, know it was July 1943. And I think the clincher of this is that when they found the aircraft and they found the body of the pilot, who is buried in this nearby town, the clincher is that in the aircraft they found some grapes. There appears to be no significance in that, except in this country, in July, there were no grapes. So we were asked, did the aircraft come from North Africa? And the answer is, it did. Lieutenant Thompson made his last flight from an airfield in North Africa and crashed here on this spot where he died.
Now we are in a house where 2 farmers live, and the house is overlooking the crash site that happened in 1943. And above this house there was a corridor where planes flew from northern Africa to Sicily and back. This was the only corridor, they told me before, where planes flew every day. Many planes flew every day during the war. And I will show now the wife the photo of Theodore Thompson and ask her if she remembers the face of this pilot. Lei si ricorda che questo assomiglia a questo? Lo faccio col dito in modo... Ok. She is almost sure that the photo of this pilot is the body she saw died in the plane.
Elated with the multiple confirmations, the Moons returned to the town of Delia to search city records for any reference to the missing pilot. This led them to the office of the police commandant.
This is the town of Delia in which Lieutenant Thompson had crashed and died. And we're standing outside the Commandante of Police Chief of the town of Delia. He's been very helpful to us in locating the right people, finding the people who can authenticate the fact that in fact the American airman that crashed here and is buried in the cemetery is the man we've been looking for.
After a series of phone calls, the commandant located and arranged a meeting with a man who had knowledge of the pilot's burial site within the small town cemetery.
Now we are in front of the city hall with the commander-in-chief of the local police and the eyewitness who buried the body. He saw the coffin put in the cemetery and is sure it was an American pilot.
After the startling revelation, they had found the man who had actually buried the pilot. The Moons, under police escort, were led to the cemetery, which had been specially opened after hours for them.
Benissimo. Now we are with the man who buried an American pilot here in this place. He is sure of this. And this is the place where the American pilot was buried.
While Sicily has long been considered to be heavily mafia influenced, the Moons were met with kindness and delighted when local family members volunteered to hold a ceremony beside a makeshift cross bearing the pilot's name.
Signore, signori, splenda luce perpetua, riposo in pace, amen.
Un altro po'. Un altro. Un altro. E ci posa la rosa? No, ora prima questo. Ora vuol dire, bene. Uno.
The Moons then had the caretaker place earth from the grave into 2 small porcelain containers for later presentation to the pilot's family. To find a lone, lost airman after 6 decades may seem like a mission impossible. It is not. There are nearly 80,000 World War II MIAs, each one of them fathers, brothers, sons, lost to someone.